So it's early spring, right? You're standing at your bathroom sink, maybe just brushing your teeth, or, you're enjoying a quiet morning in the kitchen with your coffee, and then you hear it,
Oh, yeah. That sound.
right? Just a faint kind of rhythmic scratching, maybe a little chirping coming from, well, right behind the drywall or just up above the ceiling in the soffit. And I think for most people, the immediate reaction is actually kind of pleasant.
Sure. It feels like a pastoral moment almost.
Yeah, exactly. You think, oh, spring is finally here. Some cute little bird is building a nest outside.
It's just a temporary, cute little interaction with nature that you figure you can just ignore until the babies fly away.
But if you actually look at the data from wildlife control experts, and specifically the source material we are diving into today from a company called the Critter Team, they reveal that this cute little sound is essentially a massive alarm bell.
Oh, a huge one.
Yeah, so our deep dive today is going to explore the mechanics of why, a simple bird nest in the wrong place can escalate into catastrophic property damage, completely invisible health hazards, or, and this is the crazy part, an actual house fire.
Right, and to really understand the sheer scale of this issue, the data points us to a very specific geographical perfect storm. We're talking about Conroe, Texas.
Okay, yeah.
This area serves as just a textbook example of what happens when rapid human expansion collides head-on with established wildlife ecosystems.
I really want to break down that geography for a second, because looking at a map of Montgomery County, Conroe is it's uniquely positioned. You have the Sam Houston National Forest directly adjacent, and you've got the entire shoreline of Lake Conroe.
Which is a massive, thriving, constant population of birds.
Exactly. But at the exact same time, Conroe is just exploding with residential growth. You have these huge master plan neighborhoods going up seemingly overnight, places like Harper's Preserve, Wood Forest, the Woodlands Hills, Artavia.
Yeah, you're putting tens of thousands of new homes right up against a dense natural boundary. So the birds are naturally pushing out of their forest corridors as they breed and expand.
Right.
But instead of finding more forest, they are encountering a constant, highly reliable supply of brand new residential entry points.
Which really requires us to completely shift our perspective. Because when a bird flies over a brand new subdivision in Harper's Preserve, they aren't looking at architectural roof lines or, admiring the exterior trim.
No, not at all. They're looking at a forest of premium hollow trees.
Wow. A forest of hollow trees.
Yeah, the biological imperative drives everything here. The primary offenders we see in this area are house sparrows, European starlings, and great-tailed grackles.
Okay.
And sparrows and starlings in particular are what ornithologists classify as cavity nesting birds.
Which means what exactly?
It means their deepest instinct, like their evolutionary survival strategy, is to find a tightly enclosed, physically protected space to raise their young.
So in a natural setting, that would be like a hollowed-out dead tree trunk, or maybe a crevice in a rock face.
Yes, exactly. And the thing is, natural hollers are actually quite rare and highly competitive.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
So when a starling spots a dryer vent, a bathroom exhaust opening, or a range hood vent on the side of a house, it fits their biological parameters perfectly. To them, it is a prefabricated, weatherproof hollow tree that often comes with its own source of radiant heat.
It's unbelievable. And, I would assume that older homes, the ones with rotting wood fascia or shifting foundations, would be the primary targets. But the source material highlights that brand new construction is highly vulnerable.
Surprisingly vulnerable, yeah.
Which seems incredibly counterintuitive. I mean, aren't new homes sealed tight?
Well, the building envelope itself might be tight, but the vulnerability comes down to the materials used for ventilation.
Okay, how so?
Builder-grade exterior vent covers on new homes typically rely on lightweight plastic flap dampers. The mechanical design is very, very simple. When you turn your exhaust fan on, the air pressure pushes the plastic flap open. When you turn it off, gravity just drops it shut.
So it's literally just a loose piece of plastic hanging on a hinge.
It is. And European starlings and house sparrows are incredibly persistent. They have figured out that they can simply hover, wedge their beak under that lightweight plastic flap, push it open, and walk right in.
Oh, wow. It's like we're building luxury, climate-controlled birdhouses and installing an unlocked swinging door for them. We're essentially inviting them inside the architecture.
We really are. Now, older homes face a different set of mechanical failures. If you look at houses near downtown Conroe or along the more established residential streets running toward Lake Conroe, they might not have the cheap new plastic, but they suffer from material degradation.
Right. Time taking its toll.
Exactly. Deteriorated vent covers, rusted or missing chimney caps, and aging soffit connections that have just, warped over decades of Texas heat.
And the sources mention gray-tailed grackles playing a role here too, but they seem to operate a bit differently than the cavity nesters.
Yeah, grackles are incredibly adaptable. You will usually see them roosting in massive flocks across Conroe's commercial corridors.
Like the parking lots along I-45.
Right, and around open water. But from those commercial hubs, they push outward into the adjacent residential neighborhoods. They specifically target the tree lines and roof lines bordering newer developments, exploiting the exact areas where the natural environment and the built environment overlap.
Okay, so we've established the mechanics of how they get in. But, and I think a lot of people listening might feel this way, a few twigs and some dry grass in a tube doesn't immediately sound like a crisis.
I get that. Yeah.
I mean, I know dryers get warm, but a residential dryer isn't a blast furnace. So how does a nest actually cause a house fire?
It comes down to the physics of airflow and thermal regulation. Think about the anatomy of a bird's nest. A starling doesn't just toss a few twigs in and call it a day.
Right.
They haul in dry grass, pine needles, feathers, loose debris, and they pack it incredibly tight inside the ductwork to create a secure platform.
So you have this dense plug of ultimate kindling sitting directly in the exhaust path.
Exactly. The restriction of airflow is the real danger here. Your dryer relies on an unobstructed vent to exhaust massive amounts of heat and moisture.
Okay.
When that starling nest blocks the duct, the heat has nowhere to go. It backs up into the appliance. So the dryer's internal heating element is forced to work overtime, cycling continuously without any thermal relief.
Oh man, so the machine is generating excess heat, and because of the blockage, it is forcing that extreme trapped heat directly into a tightly packed tube of dry grass and feathers.
It's a perfect storm. The U.S. Fire Administration data makes this very clear, actually. Clogged dryer vents are a leading cause of residential dryer fires across the country.
Wow.
And the primary fundamental cause of that duct blockage before lint even has a chance to accumulate is an animal nest.
But the thermal danger is just one side of the coin, isn't it? What if someone has a gas dryer? Because then we aren't just talking about heat backing up. We're talking about chemical exhaust.
Yes, and the carbon monoxide threat is severe and almost entirely invisible to the homeowner.
That is terrifying.
It is. Gas dryers and fireplaces rely on a clear chimney or duct to vent deadly exhaust gases safely outside the home. Physics dictates that gases will always follow the path of least resistance.
So if a tightly packed sparrow nest is physically capping the exit, the gas can't push through it.
Right, so the path of least resistance reverses. The nest acts as a stopper, forcing carbon monoxide and exhaust gases to backdraft directly into your laundry room or your living room.
Jeez.
And if we're talking about a nest inside a chimney flue, you have the carbon monoxide risk coupled with the immediate hazard of stray fireplace sparks igniting the nest from below.
The very systems engineered to protect your home's air quality are being weaponized by a bird nest.
Weaponized is a good word for it.
But let's pivot to a different system entirely. Say a bird nests in a standard bathroom exhaust vent. There is no extreme heat, and there is no carbon monoxide. It just pulls steam out of the shower. So where is the danger there?
Well, the mechanical failure happens first. A packed nest in a bathroom fan completely kills the fan's performance. The motor is trying to pull air and push it against a solid wall of twigs, which eventually burns the motor out through sustained resistance.
Makes sense.
But the secondary, much more sinister issue is the biological hazard.
Because the birds aren't just sitting in there. They are living, eating, and digesting in ductwork that connects directly to the air you breathe.
Exactly. The droppings they leave behind in that vent can carry a fungus that causes histoplasmosis.
Histoplasmosis.
Yeah, it's a severe respiratory illness triggered by inhaling fungal spores found specifically in dried bird feces.
Okay, walk me through the actual mechanics of that exposure, because the droppings sit in the vent and dry out over time, right? Turning into this lightweight, viable fungal matter.
Right. They sit perfectly undisturbed in the duct until you introduce forced air.
Which happens every single morning. You make a hot shower, the mirror fogs up, you flip the switch on the wall, and the fan motor kicks on.
And that fan is designed to pull moisture up and blow it outward. But because the duct is blocked by the nest, the air current violently disturbs the dried feces.
Oh, gross.
It essentially aerosolizes the fungal matter, kicking those microscopic spores into the surrounding air pressure.
It turns a standard exhaust fan into a microscopic leaf blower. I mean, it is constantly pushing contaminated air right back down into the exact room where you were standing and breathing.
Yeah, it creates a closed-loop biological hazard delivery system, and this contamination issue extends to attics as well.
Attics, too.
Oh, absolutely. Starlings and Grackle grackles will exploit gaps in open soffit areas or attic gable vents. Once inside, they pull nesting material across the joists and deposit droppings indiscriminately across your insulation.
And the source material highlights a specific biological trait about sparrows here, site fidelity. They don't just pick a random spot every year.
No, sparrows are genetically hardwired to return to the exact same successful nesting location year after year.
Oh, wow.
If a house sparrow manages to raise a brood in your attic or your bathroom vent this spring, you can guarantee they will be back next spring. Simply pulling the nest out once without physically altering the entry point is just deferring the exact same crisis to the following year.
Right. Well, if I'm listening to this and realizing my bathroom vent is currently a spore factory or my dryer vent is a ticking thermal time bomb, my absolute first instinct is going to be grabbing a ladder, getting up there with a trash bag, and ripping that nest out today.
Do not do that.
Yeah, the sources make a massive point of warning against this. Why does removing a clear safety hazard land you in legal trouble?
The legal landscape surrounding wildlife control catches almost every homeowner completely off guard. You cannot simply act based on the hazard to your property. Federal law dictates that you have to definitively identify the species of bird before you touch a single twig.
I imagine the headache here is that distinguishing one small brown bird from another is almost impossible for an average homeowner balancing on a ladder 20 feet in the air.
That is the ultimate trap. Let's start with the invasive loophole. House sparrows and European starlings are non-native species. They were actually introduced to North America from Europe back in the 1800s.
Okay, so because they are considered invasive, they don't fall under the protective umbrella of native wildlife conservation.
Exactly. The Federal Migratory Bird Treaty Act excludes them entirely. Texas Parks and Wildlife confirms that you can control house sparrows and European starlings at any time.
No permit.
There is no permit required. You can legally remove the adult birds, pull out their nests, and dispose of their eggs without any government restriction.
Which sounds like a green light. If I see a little brown sparrow building a nest, I can clear the vent.
If you are an ornithologist who can definitively prove it is a house sparrow, yes. But Texas is home to numerous native sparrows: chipping sparrows, song sparrows, grasshopper sparrows.
I see where this is going.
To an untrained eye, a protected native song sparrow looks functionally identical to an invasive house sparrow.
But the legal distinction between the two is massive.
It is the difference between basic home maintenance and a federal crime. Native sparrows are fully protected by both state and federal law under the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. It is strictly illegal to touch their nests, their eggs, or their young without highly specific federal permits.
Are these laws actually enforced on a residential level, though? Like, could I genuinely be facing a federal offense for misidentifying a feather pattern while trying to stop my house from catching fire?
The penalties for violating the Migratory Bird Treaty Act are severe, involving heavy fines and potential criminal charges. It is an enormous legal gamble to attempted DIY nest removal. If a neighbor sees you or an animal control officer happens to be driving by and identifies a protected native bird, you are fully liable.
Man. What about the grackles? You mentioned they are everywhere in the commercial corridors of Conroe.
Grackles exist in a very nuanced legal gray area. They are native, migratory birds, meaning they generally receive full federal protection.
Okay.
However, Texas Parks and Wildlife recognizes the reality of their behavior and provides a specific exemption. No permit is required to control grackles if they are actively causing a public health hazard or are considered a severe nuisance.
Well, a blocked vent packed with flammable debris and fungal spores clearly qualifies as a public health hazard.
It absolutely qualifies, but the execution of the removal and the documentation of the hazard matter immensely. You cannot handle a federally protected bird haphazardly, even under a nuisance exemption. There are highly specific operational requirements for how lethal control or nest disruption is managed.
So navigating all of this requires the ability to instantly spot the difference between a federal offense and a legally removable pest, all while balancing on an extension ladder and potentially breathing in aerosolized fungal spores. It becomes incredibly obvious why this is not a weekend DIY project. You need a professional. But the source material highlights a very specific type of professional for the Conroe area, a company called the Critter Team.
Right. The founder and owner of the Critter Team is Mike Garrett. The operational structure of his company is heavily influenced by his background. He completed 20 years of active duty service in the U.S. Army before launching this business in 2015.
The outline specifically uses the phrase military-grade approach. What does a military-grade bird removal operation actually look like functionally? I mean, how does an Army background translate into clearing a bathroom vent?
It translates into rigid standard operating procedures. There is no trial and error. Every technician is formally trained through the National Wildlife Control Operators Association.
Okay.
When they arrive at a property, the very first step is species identification. They do not initiate removal until they have absolute certainty of the bird's legal status to ensure the homeowner faces zero liability.
And once they establish it's an invasive sparrow or a nuisance grackle, what is the actual extraction process? Because we know they can't just pull the nest out and let the debris fall into the yard.
The extraction is essentially a hazardous materials operation. Because of the histoplasmosis risk and the presence of bird mites, the technicians utilize full personal protective equipment.
Like hazmat suits.
They wear heavy-duty respirators, sealed eye protection, and protective clothing. They use specialized containment systems to ensure that as the nest is mechanically pulled from the duct, none of the fungal spores or contaminated debris are allowed to spread into the living space of the home.
And after the physical debris is removed, I assume the duct itself has to be treated.
Yeah, the entire cavity or duct run undergoes a thorough sanitization process to neutralize the remaining biological hazards.
So the nest is gone, the air quality is restored, and the fire hazard is eliminated. But we keep coming back to that biological trace site fidelity.
Right, they want to come back.
The birds are going to come back next spring to that exact same hollow. You have to physically seal the entry point. And this leads to what I think is one of the most fascinating engineering paradoxes in the source material regarding dryer vents specifically. Let's call it the exclusion paradox.
It is the most common mistake homeowners make when trying to solve this permanently. The logical instinct is to go to the hardware store, buy a roll of fine wire mesh, and simply screw it over the exterior opening of the dryer vent.
It makes total sense on paper, right?
Yeah.
The holes in the mesh are smaller than the bird, so the bird cannot enter the vent. Problem solved.
The bird is blocked, sure, but the homeowner has completely forgotten what a dryer vent is designed to exhaust. It doesn't just push out hot air, it pushes out a massive volume of dense, wet lint.
Oh no, the fine wire mesh catches the lint.
Exactly. The lint rapidly builds up against the interior side of the wire mesh. Within a matter of weeks, the mesh is completely caked in lint, forming a solid wall that entirely blocks the airflow.
Unbelievable.
The homeowner has successfully kept the bird out, but they have artificially created the exact same severe fire hazard they were initially trying to prevent.
You literally traded a biological fire hazard for an engineered lint trap fire hazard. So how do you actually solve the exclusion paradox? I mean, how do you keep a persistent sparrow out without burning the house down?
This requires product-specific engineering, which is why the Critter Team certifications really matter. They aren't just handymen applying guesswork. They are recognized as a bird barrier certified installer and a Ridge Guard certified installer for the North Houston metro area.
Break down what those materials actually are, because the terminology sounds impressive, but what does it mean functionally for the house?
Let's start with the dryer vents. Instead of wire mesh, they install a specifically engineered cover design. It utilizes a weighted damper and structural spacing that allows dense, heavy lint to pass through freely and blow away in the wind, while the structural bars remain too narrow and rigid for a bird to push through or pry open.
That's brilliant. And what about the roofline vulnerabilities? You mentioned Ridge Guard. What is that?
Well, the ridge of your roof has a continuous gap at the peak to allow the attic to breathe. Birds love to squeeze under the shingles there. Ridge Guard is a custom-profiled, heavy-duty metal barrier that mechanically locks into the roofline.
Okay.
It physically seals that gap against wildlife without restricting the essential airflow your attic needs to exhaust summer heat.
The sources also mentioned they use 23-gauge aluminum flashing and stainless steel or copper mesh for the weep holes and soffits. Why the emphasis on the exact metal gauge?
Montgomery County experiences brutal environmental swings, extreme summer heat, torrential rain, and intense humidity. Builder-grade plastic works and cracks within a few seasons. 23-gauge aluminum is thick enough that a bird or rodent cannot bend or chew through it, but malleable enough that the Critter Team can custom fabricate it on site.
Which means they can visually match the exterior of the home, so you aren't left with a house that looks like it's covered in industrial scaffolding. And because they handle all of the fabrication and installation in-house, they don't farm it out to subcontractors. They back all of their exclusion work with a written warranty.
It transforms a recurring annual crisis into a permanent structural solution.
So, practically speaking, what is the timeline for a homeowner in Conroe who is listening to this? When should they be looking at their exterior vents?
The most strategic window is January and February. You want to get the structural exclusion work done before the birds begin their intensive spring scouting period.
Makes sense.
Securing the perimeter before they even choose a nesting site is vastly simpler than dealing with a panicked bird, an active nest, and potential legal hurdles later in the spring.
Although, if you are currently hearing that scratching behind your bathroom mirror right now, they can manage the extraction and sanitization at any point in the season.
Oh, for sure.
If you want to get your vents evaluated or if you already have an active situation, the Critter team is available 247. Their number is 281-667-0171. Again, that's 281-667-0171.
The cost of being proactive and installing the correct engineered barriers is a fraction of the cost of replacing a burnt-out dryer motor, remediating a fungal contamination in your drywall, or, God forbid, recovering from a structural fire.
To quickly recap the incredible escalation we've uncovered today, what begins as a seemingly innocent pastoral chirp in the walls of a Conroe home is actually a severe mechanical compromise.
Yeah, it really is.
It can unbelievably quickly escalate into carbon monoxide, backing up into your laundry room, microscopic fungal spores being aerosolized into your bathroom, and a massive legal liability if you attempt to solve it yourself with a ladder and a trash bag.
It demands that we reevaluate our perception of modern residential architecture. Those lightweight plastic vent covers aren't just an insignificant cost-saving measure by the builder. They are the weakest link in your home's defense perimeter.
Right.
They are a literal front door welcoming the hazards of the natural world directly into your climate-controlled living space.
Which leaves us with a rather profound thought to consider the next time you walk around your neighborhood. If a tiny house sparrow can so seamlessly exploit a highly engineered modern exhaust system and turn it into a perfectly heated replica of a hollow tree, what other modern conveniences in our built environment are essentially open invitations to nature that we just haven't noticed yet? Keep an eye on your roof lines.